Hi, everybody. It's Jim with Great Books, Big Ideas. Now for something completely different. I want to try out a new theme on the channel, so you could call it like a series or a playlist, and that is Hi-Fi Book Club. I've already done a few shorts along this line, but the real intention was to do some deep dives into song lyrics and read them as poetry. So we're going to do some songs that, of course, songs that I love and think are great works of art, and stand up to literary analysis. So you can learn a lot about how to study poetry by looking at song lyrics. I don't make a great distinction between song lyrics and poetry. I think they stem from the same source. They branch out into different directions. Song lyrics have the advantage of being put to music, so there's a whole musical dimension to it that you can also analyze and appreciate. That poetry itself, strictly speaking, doesn't have, but poetry does have sound, and I think poetry should always be read aloud and appreciated for that. So there's a overlap between the two. But even when we're not talking about melody and harmony and musical arrangement so much, which are things that I might touch on here, but we can really just look at the words. And we can look at the sound effects in the words. We can look for patterns. We can just try to appreciate themes and motifs in these works, just as you would with studying any other poem. And I think it's a great point of entry, a nice gateway for people who maybe are a little uncomfortable analyzing poetry. They find it intimidating. Song lyrics is a great place to start. And it's also a great place to come back to. So for today's episode in Hi-Fi Book Club, I'm going to do a song by Gordon Lightfoot, the Canadian singer-songwriter. He was active in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, all into the 2000s. He just died not that long ago, a few years back. This is from his album, If You Could Read My Mind, which original title was Sit Down Young Stranger. And the reason they changed the name is that track, If You Could Read My Mind, became a smash hit. So very quickly they changed the title of the album to make it more recognizable. What we're going to do is take a peek through the document cam at these lyrics. I've got my pen in hand, and we're going to just crunch through this and see if we can appreciate it. It's a great song. I'll put a link to the song in a show description if you'd like to hear Gordon sing it. He's got a great, rich baritone. And I wrote about this lyric, alluded to it a little bit in my most recent Substack essay, and that's why I guess it's been on my mind. But anyway, if you could read my mind, here's what we're looking at. Okay, let's jump right to it. Class is on. I've got my tea. Let's fuel up, pen in hand, and we'll take a look here. Okay, so the song is, first of all, I've kind of split it up into these stanzas that mimic what's happening in the song structure. We've got, let's read the whole thing first of all, and then we'll crack into analyzing it and doing a deep dive. If you could read my mind, love, what a tale my thoughts could tell, just like an old-time movie about a ghost from a wishing well, in a castle dark or a fortress strong with chains upon my feet. You know that ghost is me, and I will never be set free as long as I'm a ghost that you can't see. If I could read your mind, love, what a tale your thoughts could tell, just like a paperback novel, the kind the drugstores sell. Then you reach the part where the heartaches come. The hero would be me. But heroes often fail, and you won't read that book again because the ending's just too hard to take. I'd walk away like a movie star who gets burned in a three-way script. Enter number 2, a movie queen to play the scene of bringing all the good things out in me. But for now, love, let's be real. I never thought I could feel this way, and I've got to say that I just don't get it. I don't know where we went wrong, but the feeling's gone, and I just can't get it back. If you could read my mind, love, what a tale my thoughts could tell. Just like an old-time movie about a ghost from a wishing well, in a castle dark or a fortress strong, with chains upon my feet. But stories always end. And if you read between the lines, you'd know that I'm just trying to understand the feelings that you lack. I never thought I could feel this way, and I've got to say that I just don't get it. I don't know where we went wrong, but the feeling's gone, and I just can't get it back. Okay, that's a read-through of the lyric. Now let's dive in and see what's happening on multiple levels here. The semantics, syntax, sound effects, rhymes, patterns, use of figurative language, the whole 9 yards. Okay, so I'm going to split this up into like let's just look at the structure first of all. So you've got a verse here, and then I'll call this, V1 or stanza 1. In poetry analysis, we would call them stanzas. These are sort of like the chorus. So I'll just put a little C. And then verse 2. And a chorus. And this is kind of a verse, but in the song, it's the first part of it is carried through instrumental, and then you cut in here with the "I'd walk away like a movie star," and then this serves as a chorus. And then this is sort of an outlier, because what he's going to do is repeat the chorus again. It's kind of like a transition or a pivot back to the chorus. And then he repeats it again. And then one last verse. I'll call it verse 3, although it's sort of more like verse 4. And then we come back to more chorus, repetitions, refrain, and then to the end. Okay? But substantially, you sort of have three verses or movements here, followed by like what I'm calling a chorus. Now, you'll notice here a pattern. Each of these verses starts with an if statement. If you, if I, so a bit of a change. And then the last time back to if you. This is mostly a repetition of the first verse, right? So it's kind of like an if-then statement. If this, then he doesn't use the word then, but here's what would result. Like, if you could read my mind, love, then what a tale my thoughts could tell, right? If I could read your mind, what a tale your thoughts could tell. So notice how he's repeating. And then back to the first verse. If you could read my mind, love, what a tale my thoughts could tell. So this introduces really the main idea of the poem. It's a kind of a breakup song. I know he said somewhere in liner notes, I think in a box set, that this was about the breakup of his marriage. You could certainly read it that way, as a breakup, or you could even read it even if you've not broken up with the person. If you're attracted to someone or you're dating someone, you don't really ever know them. Like they're very inscrutable. They're a mystery. And that's what this song is about. Like, trying to read the other person's mind, and we just don't quite understand. So it's a song about misconnections or misconnection, like the difficulty we have reading one another. And reading is really sort of the metaphor that sort of guides the whole thing. You could think of it as an extended metaphor type of poem. If you could read my mind, if I could read your mind, here's what the tale would be, right? So tale makes me think of narrative, story, right? So it's kind of like we invent a story. We're seeking like connection, but we're also seeking to understand that person's story. What's the story of their thoughts, right? And then to try to kind of imagine what the tale the thoughts could tell would be, he resorts to metaphor, or strictly speaking, simile. Right, and these are it's a figure of speech. It's like one of the main tools in the poet's toolbox, and it's essentially comparison. Like, this is like this, or this is that, right? And then you're invited to like work through that these two things are being put together, which aren't exactly the same. They're not identical, and yet they semantically there's similarities, there's parallels. So if you could read my mind, what a tale my thoughts could tell. So he starts with the self, like he knows himself pretty well. So he knows the story, right? Just like an old time movie. So here's your first simile. And he's using the movie image, right? And the next verse, it becomes just like a paperback novel, the kind that drugstores sell. So we might call this like popular fiction. We got the old time movie and then a paperback novel, right? Both products of pop culture. So in his thoughts, if his thoughts are an old time movie, he's going to now give you a little bit about the storyline of that movie. What's the movie about? It's about a ghost from a wishing well. That's an odd, this is, he can't tell the whole story, but the key word here is ghost and also wishing. The ghost is wishing for something. What is he wishing for? You could read it as he wants to fall in love with this person. He wants to connect with this person. He wants to understand this person. He has wishes, hopes, right? But he's in a castle dark or a fortress strong. One thing I'll note here is look at the inversions. So typically in English, we would put the adjective, the modifier, before the noun. So we would say in a dark castle or a strong fortress. But for sake of meter and the music of the song, he's inverting those. It's a syntactical inversion. He's flipping it. And he says a castle dark or fortress strong. Now, if you know anything about poetic meter, you can read for stress too. So the stress here is on that first syllable, castle. This is unstressed. That's a stressed. Or a fortress strong. Stress. Castle dark, fortress strong is metrically similar, right? So in English, typically it's unstressed. Stressed is the sort of fundamental foot in poetry. The I am. Here it's a trochee, which is like the flip side of that, where the stressed is the first emphasis, the first syllable emphasized. So in a castle dark or a fortress strong, that's like metrically similar. These are unstressed. Anyway, I'm not going to do a full scan of this. I'm just telling you he knows what he's doing, and the sort of metrical structure is it gives the song, gives the lyric an identity. It gives it sort of cohesiveness. About a ghost from a wishing well. So he's a ghost, and these are sort of almost sounds like kind of like Gothic imagery to me. He's in a castle or a strong fortress, kind of a medieval fantasy type of setting. Fantasy is probably a good word to use because this is all in like the imagination. It's inside a person. And now this is sort of an odd idea, but with chains upon my feet. So the ghost is from a wishing well, but it's a chained ghost, which is odd, like putting chains on a ghost. I think of the Christmas Carol. What was the Marley? Is that the guy's name at the beginning of a Christmas Carol? Isn't he in chains? He's a ghost. So I don't know if Lightfoot is sort of thinking of that, but I guess you can imagine a ghost with chains. But the idea of it being chained means he's sort of restricted, right? Or being punished. And now he says, the ghost is me. I am the ghost. So if you could read my mind, here's how the movie would play. I'm the ghost from the wishing well who's in a dark castle, a strong fortress, doesn't matter, and I'm chained, right? And then our chorus, and I will never be set free. So chains and being set free connect. As long as I'm a ghost that you can't say. So what would free him would be seeing. If you could see me, I wouldn't be a ghost anymore. All right? Let's move on. Second verse. Now we turn the tables. If I pretend I'm Gordon Lightfoot, if I could read your mind, love, this is love song, what a tale your thoughts could tell. So you've got your story too, and we're having trouble reading one another. And what is your story like? Well, he hauls in another simile, like a paperback novel. The kind that drugstores sell. It's a really nice little detail. And, we haven't talked about rhyme much, but, he wants to rhyme tell with sell. Just like he rhymed tell with well up here. Okay, so your mind, love, is like a popular novel, like dime store novel. We don't know exactly what this story is about, but it does have a hero. Then you reach the part where the heartaches come. So this is clearly alluding to their story together. The hero in this story would be me, right? So he's thinking, I guess get this, it gets a little confusing, but he's imagining the tale that her thoughts could tell. And in her story, he's the hero of that story to kind of come in and rescue her from the heartaches or whatever. All right. But, big but here, heroes often fail. So again, we have that kind of tragedy. These are like tragic stories. The ghost that can't get unchained, and the hero who, when the heartaches come, isn't up to the task. He fails. And you're not going to read that book again. So he's carrying the metaphor forward into the chorus because the ending of that story is just too hard to take. Okay, one and done. So as I said, if you listen to the song, you'll hear kind of like an instrumental section, which is like a repetition of the verse chords. And then he cuts in the middle of that and comes back. And before we get back to that final verse, he's going to like really do a lot of repetition of this chorus. So and this is, you might call this like a pre-chorus, but I'd walk away like a movie star who gets burned in a three-way script. So now again, another simile. So we're kind of building maybe on the hero who failed. That's how I read it. So the hero is the person who would walk away like a movie star. Now he's kind of back to a movie metaphor, but this is a star who gets burned in a three-way script. Really good way to say it concisely. So he's the odd man out. Enter number two. So number two is the stand-in or the replacement for our movie star, the failed hero. And then I guess the movie queen is her, right? So he keeps on imagining their lives playing out as a plot. A movie queen to play the scene of bringing all the good things out in me. So this was the role you were supposed to play. You're acting that part. You're going to bring the good out in me. You know, we think about lovers and great relationships, like you want to bring out the best in one another, and that was his hope here. But another big but. But for now, love, let's be real. The whole song is really fantasy and guesswork, speculation. Let's keep it real. I'm not the hero. You're not the movie queen. This isn't working out, is the message. I never thought I could feel this way. And I've got to say that I just don't get it. So now he's confessing here. He's admitting failure. I don't still understand you. I can't read your mind. This is all conditional. If you could read my mind, if I could read your mind, subjunctive, right? But I can't. Let's be real. I never thought I could feel this way. Another subjunctive, but I do feel this way. I've got to say that I just don't get it. This is where he the admission of failure. I don't know where we went wrong. Something went off track, but the feeling's gone, and I just can't get it back. Okay. Self-explanatory, right? Somewhere the plot twisted and didn't go where they thought it was going to go. We have this fantasy life of how we think a relationship's supposed to be, how it will turn out, how it would turn out, and it doesn't turn out that way. All right, one more verse with choruses. So we this is pretty much the same as what we had in verse 1. If you could read my mind, what a tale my thoughts could tell, just like an old-time movie about ghosts from a wishing well. No changes there. No changes here. Up until you get to this line. So to keep it interesting, he says, but stories always end. Why would he say that here? Well, it's the last verse of the song. He's trying to bring it to closure. This story, and the story is a metaphor for their relationship, right? Their marriage. If you believe his autobiographical take on it, it's ending. Stories always end. This song has to end. And if you read between the lines, now we're kind of, these lines are a little bit different, so it's good to pay attention to how he's varying things. Another if statement, if you read between the lines, that is a great sort of expression of how we want to understand one another. So, this is interpretation. It's the kind of thing we're doing right now in talking about the song lyric. We're reading between the lines. If you read between the lines, you'd know that I'm just trying to understand. He's trying to explain himself here. I'm trying to understand the feelings, your feelings, but they're feelings that you lack. So this is the tragedy of it. You know, I'm doing all this overthinking, all this analyzing, all this fantasizing, trying to read you, wondering if you're trying to read me. But you know what? I'm trying to understand feelings, and I think this is harkening back to the, you know, the failed hero, and you know, the bringing all the good things out in me. This is maybe all in the singer's head. You don't have those feelings. You don't even want that. You lack it, and lack is a big motif in the lyric. I never thought I could feel this way. Repetition of what we had down here. I think actually in the song, if you hear him sing it, he might say act. I think there's a difference between acting and feeling. So listen to it if you do want to listen to the song. Listen for that small change. But I'm pretty sure as he closes out the song, he changes that to feel. I never thought I could feel this way, and I've got to say that I just don't get it. Again, I don't understand. He's at an impasse. I don't know where we went wrong, but the feeling's gone, and I just can't get it back. Okay, so pretty much, you know, we get the idea of what's happening. Let me just make a couple of observations about sound effects and like rhymes and things like that. The word lack rhymes down here with back, and it also harkens back to this word back, right? You also see some end rhymes. We've pointed out a couple here. So it's these lines rhyme, tell well. The chorus here rhymes free and see. That's a couplet. Tell, sell. Novel is sort of an off rhyme, but it's really tell and sell that are rhyming here. But notice the lots of L sounds to finish out words. Tell, novel, sell, fail. So it's a subtle little sound effect that stitches together that unit. These don't rhyme, interestingly. Free C rhymes, but again, take doesn't rhyme at all. No rhymes here. So he's kind of free riding through here as he repeats this chorus. And then we're back to this original rhyme scheme. But that's not the only place where you see rhyme. So I'm going to try to point out where you see internal rhyme effects. Now, internal rhyme is where, you know, words don't just have to rhyme at the end of a line. They can a word at the end of a line can rhyme with a word in the middle of a line, or two words in the middle of lines can rhyme. These are just the patterns that poets and songwriters use. And I saw some internal rhyming a little bit farther down. I might be missing some here. Here's a kind of an off rhyme, but again, an ending sort of sounds similar. And here we have this is a great example of internal rhyming. A movie queen to play the scene of bringing all the good things out in me, and that's a near rhyme or off rhyme of scene. Like it's actually assonance, where like the vowel sound is shared. And bringing sort of stitches back to the word clean. we have the N's and the E, like that kind of sound. So there's a little bit of a thread there. And notice also, let's be real rhymes with feel, which is interesting, like a little bit of internal rhyming there from picking up from a previous line. And then way rhymes with say, internal rhyme. Wrong and gone is an off rhyme, but they share that O, that long O sound. And again, on the chorus, this is where you see most of the internal rhymes happening. If you read between the lines, the ends here, like that pattern's kind of similar. You know that I'm just trying. Lines and trying is an off rhyme to understand the feelings that you lack. And again, distant rhyming with back, lack, and back. Here's way, say. I don't know where we went wrong, but the feeling's gone, the off rhyme. I just can't get it back. Okay. That is if you could read my mind. And now, if we think about what this song means, this is my take on it. It's a song about the difficulty we have in understanding a loved one. We're always fantasizing. We're drawn into fantasy. We want things to turn out like a movie, like a novel. And in reality, it doesn't usually do that. And this is a song about the singer facing up to that reality that the feeling's gone. He just can't get it back. He doesn't understand why it left, but it left. And why she no longer feels how he wanted her to feel or how she once felt. And it's just a terrific song. I can understand why it was a hit because so many of us can tap into it on a lot of levels. Like I said, if you've been through a breakup or you've been through a marriage and you're on the other side of it, or you wanted something to happen and it didn't turn out the way you wanted it to turn out. That's unrequited love could be a spin on this song too. It's just a great expression of it. And now treat yourself. This is my key for studying poetry and song lyrics. Is it's fun to analyze them and pick them apart and do the deep dive. Yeah, I get into it, but ultimately you want to put the pieces back together because the integral whole is what really counts. Don't leave the pieces on the table, on the operating room table. Put it back together, read through it again one more time, or better yet, sing it or listen to Gordon Lightfoot sing it. He just does a terrific job with it. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive. Let me know if you want to hear more deep dives into song lyrics. This was HiFi Book Club. Look for the shorts too. Like every now and then I get inspired to do a short where I share a little song clip and have a little prompt about it so you can respond to those. But hopefully, again, we'll tackle another song one of these days. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.